Episode 4 of the new Willow series is jam-packed with nostalgia. I think more so than previous episodes because this one takes place in insert spoilers here location. And because of that, because it's a place that we saw in the actual film, there's a lot of sort of memories that we are looking back at. So we get quite a few flashbacks in this episode. We also get some really cool world building that shows us some of what they're putting into fleshing this world out a little bit more. So, all in all, for me, it was a slower episode than the previous three, but it also sort of ended one arc and started a new arc, which is really cool. So we're going to be diving into the review today. If this is your first time tuning into my channel, here's the first thing you need to know. Spoiler alerts. I am talking about the whole episode in its entirety, so if you don't want things spoiled, you need to walk away now. Second of all is if you like this video, don't forget to like, subscribe, hit the bell icon because we do the reviews every Wednesday. I also review a lot of other shows, Wheel of Time, Rings of Power, Star Wars, Star Trek, all sorts of other stuff, whatever Chris and I feel like watching on a week-to-week basis. Right now it's Willow. We got other stuff coming. There's also the Mondays of Middle Earth show that I do, reading through the Lord of the Rings, The Hobbit, Silmarillion, and so on and so forth. So stick around for all those things. Support if you can. Super chats, super stickers, super thanks, memberships, all down below. Links, all that other stuff. Patreon page. Let's dive in. So this episode starts off with them in the castle of Bavmorda, or the castle of Nockmaar, and this is a heavily nostalgic place because this is where a lot of stuff went down in the Willow film. This is where everything culminates, and we start this episode off with Grayson having been branded or marked at the end of the previous episode, and he's beginning to change into what Valentine was changing into. Basically, he's being taken over by the demon, by the Lich, and there's sort of a lot of back and forth between the various characters on whether or not they're going to be able to save Grayson. And in the process of this, the realizing that they need various components which can only be found somewhere in the castle. So we've got the party getting split. And this is where, especially towards the end of the episode, I kind of went and looked at this and went, this is like the perfect sort of Dungeons and Dragons episode because you're putting all of the characters, you're kind of making all of the characters face their greatest fears, which is a good storytelling technique, but you're also splitting them up while you do it, which causes them to realize that they can't do things on their own. And that's one of the most powerful components in storytelling and like Dungeons and Dragons. When you're having a party go out and adventure together, is making them realize that they can't do it alone, because a lot of players will want to try to go off and do their own thing, and they'll try to split the sessions up, and you gotta nip that in the bud as quickly as you can. It's okay to have every once in a while have sessions where a few people go off and do something, but really the adventure is about the party and what they're doing on their adventure. Kind of like the Fellowship of the Ring. It is a Fellowship of Nine, and while there are bits and pieces that all of them are going to go off and do from time to time, at the end of the day, it is mostly about the nine working together towards that common goal. And I think that for me, you've got Alora Dannon questioning her abilities. She doesn't know that she actually summoned that little sprout, so she doesn't think she can actually do magic. You've got Grayson being taken over by a lich, and he knows things. The Lich knows things and is casting doubt in Alora's mind because he's bringing up things when they're trying, when Willow is there with Lord Dannon and they're chanting and they're trying to suck the demon out of, cast the demon out of Grayson. The demon is saying things. This Lich is saying things to Alora and to Willow as well, trying to provoke them to lose focus. And ultimately, they kind of both do, but more Alora than Willow, because Willow, stuffs a rag in the creature's mouth and is like, "Shut up!" But that's enough to cast doubt into Alora's mind, and I think that's very important when we come towards the end of the episode, which I'll kind of get to in a little bit. Meanwhile, you've got Bormanoff hearing voices in this treasure room, and he's trying to get into this treasure room. It's never made clear if he actually got in or not. But he's hearing voices beyond the door, and calling him to ransack this treasure room. So he's definitely being affected by that. And at some point, it makes him believe that the item that he got in the previous episode that he took that has to do with the Chimera armor that Lux piece or whatever, which screws into the chest plate. He had that in his pouch. It disappears. He thinks one of the girls took it, so he confronts. I'm not gonna remember the names, but Kit and her friend, and that's when they find out that he lied about how he didn't find anything. And of course, when they leave the castle, it's back in his pocket again, which makes you believe that something having to do with the castle being cursed is what made him believe that he didn't have that, and so he was attacking his friends. Meanwhile, you've got Kit just hating everyone right now and believing that they're gonna have to kill Grayson and Jade. That's her name. Jade is questioning everything about her being a captain or not. Willow's questioning his own abilities, and this comes to a head, especially towards the end of the episode. Um, but before we get to that point, there was one, all these things that we start to get in terms of world building here. One of which is as Kit is wandering through the castle looking for ingredients for the spell, she comes across this tapestry which shows the history of Bavmorda bowing to the crone and becoming one of these six, the blood of the six. So we're getting some world building. What's the blood of the six? Who are the six? We hear this thing about Willow tells her about the cult of the worm, I think is what it's called, and how the six at the beginning of creation there were six Fae bloodlines who branched off and followed dark magic, and Bavmorda's family is one of those six bloodlines, which is why Sorsha, when Sorsha gave the warning to Kit about how Bavmorda's blood is in me, it's in you, it's in Eric, um, and that's when Willow, makes this proclamation. That's why we have to hurry up and get to the city because she's got Eric right now. And she can corrupt him. Meanwhile, I think the most powerful component. Before we get to that point, I keep getting sidetracked. I didn't take notes this time. It's been a rough morning this morning, um, and I didn't have time to take notes. But there was this other part where Jade is wandering through the castle on her own, and she comes across an aspect of General Kale, who just it was such a cool moment to see that armor back in full force and hear the voice and everything else. But that's one of the coolest aspects of this episode, I think, was how they kept bringing like the flashbacks. They brought these characters back a lot of times in ghost format, using actual footage from the original film. None of which is more telling than when they get to the high tower, which is where they dealt with Bavmorda at the very end of the first film. And in that very same room, they're dealing with Grayson and the Lich and this confrontation when during which all the truth comes out that Willow was not, in fact, a great sorcerer, at least not at the time. And, the world thinks that he used some great Fibonacci spell sequence or whatever to get rid of Babmorda, and he's never done anything to dispel that rumor. And during this sequence, everyone gets to see the past and what really happened. And so it casts a great shadow of doubt on Willow and his abilities as a sorcerer, whether or not he's going to be the right person to lead them or not. Even though he does manage to do some more spell casting here with the staff that he has, it obviously causes him great pain and discomfort because he falls to the ground again. But even so, sort of the illusion that they all had that he is this great sorcerer has been dispelled because now he's being called into question because of the vision they've just all seen about how he used a disappearing pig trick, to make Bavmorda believe that the child had been transported and that she didn't die at his hands, excuse me, but rather, through misfortune as the lightning struck her. So it's just a great episode, sort of setting up the next arc here. I think it was more like, we're getting 8 episodes here, so it's kind of like a mid arc now where we're in the doubt phase. We had the early phase where they weren't sure, and then episode 3, he did some magic, and everyone was, "Oh my God, you're so powerful!" And then now we're back into the doubting phase, and everyone's feeling a little overwhelmed by the quest that's ahead of them. But at the very least, they're out of the castle and on their way to the next part of the adventure, and we get a glimpse now of Eric in a cell and the city of which he is in, which is the Immortal City, I think is what it's called. And that's where he's being held captive. It's on the other side of the sea, and the visuals here are breathtaking, and it gives me that again. It's giving me that world building component because we're seeing this vast city that was a part of what some great ancient empire we don't know, but it looks like lost civilization, ancient technology, towering statues as far as the eye can see. Pretty amazing stuff. And then we also get the fact that the harpy and the giant are on the trail of the party, and the crone is talking to him about take the child, kill the rest. So you know the next episode's going to have a confrontation. So looking forward to seeing it. This was a slower episode for me, so I gave the other ones like first couple episodes were 10 out of 10. Episode 3 was an 11 out of 10 for me. This episode, I would say I would give it more of an 8 out of 10. It was entertaining. The dialogue was a little overly cheesy in a couple of areas. Um, and that's fine because, again, this is a kid's show and I'm not prejudiced against it. Um, but overall, it was a great episode. I can't wait to see more. I'm thoroughly enjoying this show. Happy that it's on the air. I can't wait to finish it out. I hope it gets a season 2. In the meantime, leave your thoughts below. Like, subscribe, hit the bell icon. Support in any way you can. Join as a member. Support with super chats, super stickers, and beyond. Don't forget about the Patreon page, and I'll see everybody in the next episode. Peace.